Green Lantern, Green Arrow, World's Finest Special, Issue 1. This is a one-shot by Jeremy Adams and art by Lucas Meyer. Well, on the main story anyway. There's kind of a backup as well. But it's just more of a sequel to the main story, if anything. So, yeah, this... I didn't really look into what this was all that much. It was probably in the solicit text when it was set, and I could have went in with the expectations. But it turns out that it's got the world's finest branding, which DC seems to be using right now as, oh, this is set in the past. Maybe Silver Age, maybe a little bit later, but in that kind of range.
This one gives us a little bit more explicit, and not only is it the pairing that here that we're expecting, but
yeah,
on the front cover it does say "New Tales from a Hard Traveling Era." I'm like, okay, that tells you.
Well, I guess even more specific by the end though, because the end of the issue specifically says to be continued in New Teen Titans issue 2, 1984, or whatever the year is.
It does really date it quite specifically. Yeah,
very specific, because this ends up being a Deathstroke like focus story, and it's basically the first time that
early grey Deathstroke.
Yeah, it's the first time that Hal or Oliver have encountered them, and then later Barry in the second story. So that's really what this is about. Is Deathstroke trying to kill them, and they're on a road trip. Ollie wants to get back to Dinah. They've been out longer than they expected to, and the Hal keeps pushing them to stay out for longer. And Deathstroke shows up with a rocket launcher and tries to kill them. And that's the premise of the book, really. That's the. I mean, obviously there's like more beats to it, but that's pretty much it. He tries to kill them. He thinks he succeeded. He didn't.
there's some banter back and forth with Hal and Ollie.
Yeah, it's a fun read though. I don't want to sound dismissive because I actually enjoyed reading it.
I agree. Until the second part.
Really, the Flash side really.
I didn't actually notice this until we were talking about the solicits. I really don't like Jerry Adams writing Flash. Because
okay.
I'm enjoying Adams' Green Lantern run. I did not enjoy his Flash run. The backup stuff here with the Flash stuff, I was downright bored by. Like I was like, oh my god, this kind of it tanked like my overall perception of the issue. It felt like a lot longer than it was to me. That section of the book. Whereas like this main story, I quite enjoyed. I thought it was pretty fun. I thought these, he's got a good voice on Hal and Ollie, and they bounced off each other well, and it was very classic hard traveling heroes. And then I just really didn't like the backup.
But even when Hal showed up and he was the main character again, pretty much.
Yeah, because it was still playing off his Barry, and his Flash, it just didn't work for me.
Okay, I mean, I do think his Green Lantern's better than his Flash book, right? But
I think it's really funny because when I was reading this, I was not thinking about his Flash run at all. Like, it wasn't even in my head. I just found myself not enjoying the Flash backup as much. I didn't notice the connection until we were talking about the solicits, and I realized, oh wait, he did both those. That's kind of funny.
I mean, I just don't feel that way. I think the art goes down a step in the second story. I don't like the art as much as Meyer on the main part.
I also, as well, I think with the ending of it, I like it less as well, because if it had just been the first part and it was this standalone one shot of just, hey, this is just an early adventure with Deathstroke, early days stuff. Hey, this is fun. I think the end with Deathstroke kind of going, hey, no, you work for Hive. I want, talking about it, and it being like this really direct lead in to the new Teen Titans stuff makes me like it a little bit less as well. I feel like it kind of forcing itself into that continuity instead of just being, hey, it's just set around that time, like all the other World's Finest branded stuff these days is. Yeah, it just didn't sit right with me.
That didn't bother me. I mean, if anything, I just got a sort of smirk in my face where I'm like, oh, okay, you're saying this is like right before his like first appearance, basically.
Yeah, it just for me, it felt unnecessary.
I mean, I'm not gonna say it's necessary. I mean, I give it a smirk. It amused me well enough. I think it's a fine one shot. It's definitely not a must read by any stretch. It's got some nice art, particularly in the first story. There's some nice banter between the characters, but admittedly, if you told me exactly what this was before I'd read it in a week where I had 12 other books,
I probably wouldn't have bothered.
I probably would have said, you know what, I'll skip that 40-page book. But I'm not mad I read it either. Like it's thing.
It's all right. I think, like I say, if this book had ended a page earlier than the main story ends, because you have a page of Deathstroke at the end. If you go to the page before that, it's where they're going, red or black licorice. And he's like, red. He's like, fine. If you end it there on that comedic beat, I probably rate this book a whole point higher than I'm going to. I haven't decided what my score is yet, but it would be a whole point higher if it had ended there. I know that. Because it's up to that point, again, maybe not on this week where I had about 50 comics to read. Maybe I wouldn't have bothered still, but it was enjoyable enough. Like I was having a good time. I wasn't mad that I was reading it, even with all that amount of comics.
It makes me wonder if they're going to do more of these one-shots, like, just like, hey, here's an early days story of this character, so on.
They are really establishing that's what the world's finest means right now.
Yeah, I was like, you know what, that's exactly what that book has been, and they had that Teen Titans like tie-in 6-issue series as well, which wasn't even tying in directly to the book, but
necessarily, but like it was set in the same, not even the same time period necessarily, but like it was the idea of like classic Teen Titans.
Yeah, classic era stuff. I mean, who knows? Maybe at one point we'll actually get a really terrific story out of this. That's like, oh, hey, this is going to be an all-timer book now, set in that early days of whatever character it is. But as it is,
could well be, yeah.
It's mostly been fun and fluff for the most part, which isn't bad. But
this kind of falls into that. I think the problem that I have is you could update the outfits on this book, like so Ollie's wearing like a more current outfit, and this could be present day. Like everything about this could be exactly the same because you guys' relationship with Dinah's still there. You can have them just, hey, we're going on a road trip for old time's sake.
Yeah, it's basically just a case of them not referencing anything that specifically puts it in that era. Like, like Barry being Flash does a little bit because he's not Flash right now, but other than that,
early Deathstroke. But if you just change it to modern Deathstroke and he's taking that for a reason, obviously you have to tweak a little bit. It's like the weakness to yellow. Like there are little tweaks you have to make, but nothing major. This could very easily be a present day issue.
Yeah,
and I don't think it'd be any worse for that. It wouldn't necessarily be any better, but I feel like there's a little bit, if I'm being cynical, where it's banking on the nostalgia a little bit of, hey, look, it's this duo from the past where in a time where you loved them.
I almost feel like there's nothing you need to change in the story to justify it more. If anything, as much as I like Lucas Meyer, it would more just be a case of give it an art style that feels more old school, and that would make it feel like it's part of that era. In the same way that something like the New Frontier looks like of its time, the way it does, even though it was much newer.
Oh yeah, let's just go get a Darwin Cook on it, shall we? Let's just find a generational talent.
Or a Resurrection Machine.
Or that, yeah. And then waste him on a one-shot.
Waste him on a one-shot. All right, what are you rating the World's Finest one-shot?
I'm going to give it a 5. It would have been a 6 if it ended where I preferred.
I think that's harsh. I think this is a perfectly good 7 out of 10. It's a fun read, not necessary by any means, but well, I do think the first half's stronger than the second half. I don't think it's this dramatic drop off that you've got. So
I think for me, part of it as well is that it's a Green Arrow, Green Lantern issue. The World's Finest, like it's like I say, it's hard traveling heroes. That flash stuff on the back. Nothing to do with that. And meaningless, pointless. Cut it out. Get rid of it.
What's so funny is it said next time Deathstroke goes after Flash, and I thought, there's going to be a sequel to this issue. And then I turned the page and I was like, oh no, it's right now.
I did that as well.
It's actually just in the book. Okay, here we go.